Kalispera, that's Greek for good afternoon. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Morore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories, they come and inspire us, they come and educate us on a subject. And always we have a great time here at Now Tell Us. Today we are going to talk about writing. Yeah, writing and publishing your book. Yep. I'm going to have a guest today who is one of the contributing authors to this book with 16 authors. Her name is Karine Leno Ancellin, and she's going to be here shortly to tell us about writing and what she does and how you can get started on writing and how you can get published. But before we do that, I would like to request you to please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, please ask. If you have a comment of any kind about this podcast or episode, you're welcome. We love feedback. Thank you in advance. And now, I won't take one more minute because Karine has a lot to tell us. So why don't you join me as we go together to meet our guest today, Karine. Here we go. Hi, Karine.
Yeah, hello, Anthony. How are
How are
you?
you? Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. We're in Greece, so the weather is amazing. It's such a blessing when you see the rest of the world, and then you're in Greece and you look out and there's this stunning sunset tonight. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah. It's and
The
now.
the whole sky is orange. The it,
I haven't seen that.
it's
It's
happening
orange.
right now as we speak.
I must go out and have a look after we are through with this.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's a beautiful place. I am always encouraged to just appreciate this fact. Once I hear people coming down here from the UK and they're just like, hey, you people, you're in paradise.
It is. It is true. We're so grateful to be in Greece. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a blessing when you travel and you see the rest of the world. It's a blessing. This country.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for coming to Now Tell Us. We appreciate you, your presence, and you taking your time to be with us here today.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be able to share with your community of people my experience.
Hmm. Maybe we can get started by knowing who is Karine.
Mhm, yeah. Well, Karine is a very normal person, I would say. Although I always felt a little bit out of the norm, but I think I'm like everybody else. The only thing is I have had a lot of experiences in different countries. I lived in Mauritania. I was married. I had 4 children, and then I lived in other different countries. And I was born and raised in the U.S. in New York. So I have contrasts that made the person that I am today, I guess. There's a bit of English, a bit of British in me. There's a bit of Greek now in me. It's a sort of, um, it's a sort of, you know, I hope where I go, I take the best of what there is to know and learn. And, but it does give me a sort of advantage to understand the world, to have seen different people's way of living.
Yeah, and I would say it's good to have experienced life the way you've done so up to now.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who are dreaming to be to go out of the place they were born, at least
Yeah.
for some time, and experience other cultures, experience other lifestyles. I mean, it's good when you tell us that you've been to those places and lived life there. So you've got a part of each and every culture that you've been to. That's interesting and good.
And they're very, very different from each other, which means that, and the more we go, the more we see it in the world today. We are atomized in different like spheres of people who think, new age, and they have these values and they have these way of behaviors, and but so you already know that when you live in very different cultures, very different countries.
Hmm. And what has been your career?
So my career was as a journalist, and that's why if you go to my website, you will see how my writing has evolved. And since this series is about writing, I started more in journalism. And when I was living in Africa, in Mauritania, and in West Africa, I would go and report on events and things that were happening there. And and so I was just reporting. And then after I started writing more essays, I did interviews, and then from the basic interviews I moved on to literary interviews, because I've always had this double life kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even in terms of languages, like I have double languages. I have a basic English and French, and then I added Arabic, and now I'm adding Greek, and so yeah, that's kind of the basis of it, and I evolved from journalism to literary journalism, let's say. And then I interviewed author like you do today with me. I did the same with other authors from way back to all the way up to now. I continue to do that. I love it. It's very inspiring when you meet other authors and they tell you what how it is that they work, and yeah, it's inspiring. And the poetry that I write, which is a big part of my life, is something that was always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of expressing. One of the other authors on this platform talked about having cancer and being able to survive or to fight it because she wrote. Well, for me, it's the same thing. It's a sort of exaltation that happens to me. It's not, I don't deliberately decide that I'm going to write a poem. The
Mm-hmm.
poem is created intuitively, I think, in me, or I don't know how
Yeah.
it happens. And then it comes out when I decide to sit down, and then it pours out. And then after I do change a few things, but the core, the gist of it is somewhere from my subconscious or something like that. And so now I'm also starting to write a novel. So this will be my first novel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've started, it's a very different thing to go from journalism to poetry to novel writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different experience. It's a sort of fiction that I took from an experience that I had in Mali when I was following the Tuareg rebellion, and I was adamant with the cause of the Tuareg that they needed to have a land and that they needed to have a country between the six countries that they belonged to.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't a great journalist because I was partial. I was not neutral,
Mm-hmm.
but the experience was very, very interesting. And it's also interesting as a looking at the Sahel and how they evolved and how it got radicalized, and how people that were friends of mine and that we went out together for drinks and dancing and stuff, and now they've become radical Islamists. And it's an interesting work to do that. I don't know if the result will be great. I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm 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 a bit I'm a bit chilly about it. I don't know. It's written already, but I don't know.
I believe it's going to be a beautiful one. And you and I, knowing that we have a mentor with us, I know that he is going to guide you on how to go
Yes,
about. Yes, he's going to guide you
yes.
on how to go about it. So I'm sure it's going to be a great one.
Yes, that's true. I'm very blessed to have found Imagining Editions as my supporter and,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
mentor, as you say.
Hmm. Now, which was your very first book? And was it poetry? And now, since you are going into a novel, because that's a question that I was going to ask you, have you always been doing poetry? Is it only poetry that you've published so far?
No, no, no. What, like 20 years ago, because my career dates back,
Hmm.
I wrote a book about the henna in Mauritania. And I did the photos and I collaborated with the author. And so I've always been writing. Like when you write articles, it's still the act of writing. Okay, there's a subject, you're not free to dream and do what you want. But 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 yes, I think that this experience has fed into the way that my poetry has grown in me.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of poetry is like, it's, you take out the words, you take out, and you leave it to the bare minimum to convey an idea that comes from an experience.
Mm-hmm.
So my first book of poetry was this one, the Missing Angle,
Yeah.
and that was published in 2019.
Okay.
And then, oh yeah, I wanted to say to the authors who want to publish, I've prepared it here. You see, they're the best way to be published is to also try and get your thing out, your words out there, get
Mm-hmm.
people to understand your words. So for example, you send your work to anthologies, you find anthologies on the web. Would it be essays, would it be poetry, would it be each kind of text? And then they take it up and they publish it. And it's fun to be with different poets from all walks of life. It's a lot of fun. And so now my last poetry collection is, it just came out, this one. So it's fresh from the press. And
Penelope embodied.
Penelope embodied. And
Okay.
what I feel is that really, this process I was telling you about coming to the more essential as I write. I see that this is actually what has happened. When I was writing journalism, I was writing like loads and loads of things about the Tuaregs, about this, about that,
Mm-hmm.
about women in Mauritania or women in Senegal, about polygamy, about this and that. And I had so many words. But now I've reduced the the words to the essential words.
Okay.
And that's how it is in poetry, and that's why I will forever I will keep on doing poetry, whether I write novels on the side or interviews or articles or essays. I will forever do poetry because poetry is more creative. Poetry is more, there's no guideline. I mean, you don't have, there's no, of course, also I teach poetry. I'm a literature teacher and I teach drama, I teach no prose and poetry. But the poetry that I teach helps me again to understand this this quintessential job that the poet has to do.
Mm.
And so, since I love poetry so much, what I
Yeah.
also do is that I do my own anthologies.
Okay.
So during the COVID, I published this one. So this is, I have a poetry society called the Poets Agora,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a poetry society, and we do events that was it's Pan-Hellenic and Greek poets,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because there was the crisis in Greece when I arrived in 2015, and people were really depressed and sad, and they had to make ends meet and they couldn't. So we decided that my the partner with whom I did the Poets Agora, the association, her name is Angela Liras,
Okay.
and so my partner and me, we decided that we wanted to offer a platform to have this immense desire for being heard
Mm-hmm.
answered. So we did this poetry society or poetry association, a poets agora, and we did events, and we did this collection, this anthology, and then we did it over 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, we published this first edition of
We
our work, and you can see behind me. You can see all these are the events.
okay.
Let me show you. You see, all these are the different
Yes.
events that we had,
Mm-hmm.
and that was another source of inspiration for me because hearing other poets and being able to understand the language of the Greek language and penetrating the psyche of poets in
Mm-hmm.
Greek was it's I have not achieved it yet, but
And I
I'm
think you're
on
still doing the events, if I'm not wrong.
what?
I think you're still doing the events, if I'm
I'm
not wrong.
still doing the events, and
So
my
you have
next
one
event,
coming up.
yes, my next event is here. It's called Raven Poetry Readings,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be at the Mario Prasino Museum in Kukaki, next to
Yeah.
the Acropolis.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be again a gathering of poets, and I myself will read there as well. And
Okay.
um, because these are little pop-up events that I do in the meantime, because we usually have our events in the house of my partner Angela Liras, and the events are in her neoclassical home, which is really beautiful, and which is um, it's a home that was before it was home to um, during the junta. The clandestine voices would meet there. It was a boate. It was a clandestine thing,
Mm-hmm.
gathering. So it has the soul of this political struggle, let's say, that the Greek people went through. And it's also absolutely magnificent. It's got frescoes on the ceiling. It's really magnificent. So we'll resume that when Angela Liras will come back to Greece because she's
Mm-hmm.
in New York now.
Okay. I love the fact that you tell us that you've moved from one genre to another one, and now you're diving into a new one altogether. Now, your passion area, which is poetry, I have to admit, is not one of the easiest or the most embraced by many people. So you could be a unique one. Now, there could be someone who's listening here, and myself included, because I've not done anything in poetry. Uh, Tell us how to get started in that area. Just give us an idea.
Yes, yes, yes. Because, poetry is cathartic. It's something that will make you feel good.
Hmm.
It's something that will, it's not only the act of writing, it makes you feel good and it makes the people who hear you feel good. And it's not something like a book. You take a book and you read it and you put it down and you read it again the next day. You go back to the characters and you go back. So if you write poetry, it's because I don't know, maybe different people write for different reasons, but the way I see it, the way I feel it, it's every time it's something for because there is an event. For example, I'll tell you, there was in Saskatchewan in Canada, because my sons who lived in Canada, so I was very close to Canada as well. And in Saskatchewan, there was a murder of children with knife.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read that, you're so you have, I don't know, anger, rage, disgust. You have all those feelings that come to you, and instead of keeping that inside, or instead of, I don't know, going to meditation, to yoga, or to a church, or to something to take it out, to let yourself, your mind, go at rest. Writing a poem is a good idea. It's a good idea. Also, I would encourage all the people, like, for example, the refugees who come to Greece and go through such a difficult journey to get here. And then they get here. And then when they get here, it's another difficult, uh, almost impossible task to be able to just live normally. And
Mm.
I think that, I know it's not maybe the priority of somebody who wants to make a day and go through the day and get food and shelter and warmth, but it's important because it also, it's a witness to something. It's a witness to. So I would really encourage um, people that are listening to us, I would really encourage them when they go through an amazing experience. And it doesn't have to be something groundbreaking, it
Mm.
can be an amazing experience when you're just sitting and watching the stars, and then you have some kind of inspiration and you see the stars talking to you and you fall in love with the stars. Like W.H. Auden, he wrote, if the stars were to live with a passion that I could not return. It's that the poems is imagination. The
Mm.
poet is somebody who actually is able to set their thoughts free, and thoughts that are hard thoughts. Like maybe sometimes some people would like to, because life is so hard, they would like to kill themselves, or they would like to kill other people, or they would like to, but poetry is an opening. It's an exit. It's a possibility to live those situation, and other normal situations.
Yeah. Do we have types of poems like you dear? This is a type, and the reason I'm asking this is when I first had poems, my first experiences with poem was uh, every line is rhyming with the previous. You've got somehow to weave the words together to make a nice, sweet sounding flow. Are there rules? Do we have to? I mean, how do I just go get started? I mean, if I need to know, is there somewhere I shouldn't go?
Yeah, it's 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 something you have in you, for example, Anthony, because it's you have to love words. You have
Mm.
to find a language, and that language you have to love it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have different languages in you, right? So you have to decide, am I going to write in this language, or am I going to write in that language? I had to make the decision, am I going to write in this language or that language? I think that words are extremely important. There's a combination between everything I was telling you before and the love of words, the love of
Mm.
etymology, the love of. So there are forms of poem. There are forms of sonnets or villanelle or haiku, or every different culture has an array of different structures.
Mm-hmm.
There is a very interesting movement that has American poets in it. One of them is Alicia Stallings, who does. They're called New Formalists. So since she studies ancient texts and translates ancient texts, she tries to take the form of ancient texts and writes in a very modern way, but
Mm-hmm.
uses the form of ancient texts. So you can decide to do this, but you can also be, because we poetry has gone through movements like every other area of writing. Like there was the romantics, there were the classics, there were the modernists, then there was postmodern, then there's the surrealist. So there's lots of movements. So
Okay.
for somebody like you, I would say that at this point you are more free. You're more free, but there are more poets all around the world. So you are more to give something um, unique,
Mm-hmm.
something that is yours, that is your voice, and maybe other people will find themselves in your voice. But it has to be unique. It has to be extraordinary, or it has to be the ordinary, but because you convey it in such a extraordinary way, it moves. The idea is that the reader will be somebody who will come to your poem, and then the idea ultimately is that you will be quoted, like the presidents quote poets.
Mm-hmm.
um, People quote poetry when they do speeches, and you're studied. Like, for example, you're studied on a PhD, or in November, I'm going to give a class at the University of Roanoke in the U.S.
Okay.
And this is the idea, is that you carry something unique, and something that will bring an emotion to your reader, that will bring. Poetry is about emotion more than the rest of the writing. It's less intellectual and it's more intuitive.
Oh, okay. I'm being tempted to write a poem, and
You should.
yes, I'm tempted to write a poem, and Karine will have a look at it and tell me how's this as a poem. Maybe it's something that someone out there is waiting. Just like I thought, I came to find out after writing my book, my first book, someone was just waiting for that book to read, and I had to write it for it to get to him or her, and it meant quite a lot in their lives. And so you never know. And I like taking action, so I'm going to sit down at some point and write a poem, and Karine is going to read it.
Yes, definitely. And anybody, I'm on Facebook. I have a public page on Facebook with my name, Karine Leno Ancellin. And anybody who writes poetry is welcome to send it to me, because I love it. It's something that I love, and it's more of a thrill to me than the novel. The novel is more of an intellectual work on things that are philosophical questions of the day, which I
Mhm.
want to solve through reflecting what happened. Why this radicalization of people that were really, really, really good people, nice people, people that were, peaceful and everything, and then suddenly why this evolved in this way. That's an intellectual or philosophical development, and I don't use my emotions. But in the poem, you use your emotions, but you have to also juggle. It's not all an emotional thing.
Okay.
It has to give. It's a gift, actually. A poem is a gift. It's a gift. You give somebody a magnifying lens on an event, or
Mm.
on an emotion, on something, and it cleans you, and the person who will read it will feel better. They will feel, oh my god, he thinks that, Anthony thinks that, oh my God, this is really something I thought the same, but I didn't know how to put it in words. You
Mm-hmm.
see?
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Karine, for everything that you're sharing with us. Now, for anybody who may be coming in right now, we are on Now Tellers, and our guest today is Karine, Leno, Ancellin. We are talking about writing and publishing, and we've covered so much on poetry. Now, Karine is one of the contributors in this book, Write and Publish Your Book. It's got 16 authors who've contributed, and Karine has contributed about writing poetry. Now, you can get this book on Amazon, and actually, the link is in the description. And find out more of what Karine has to say on poetry. And remember also to check out on her, which is your website, Karine.
Oh yes, my website is my name, Karine Leno Ancellin, and .net. So, but even if you Google me, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for putting it up there.
Yeah.
And through my website, you can send the poetry. You can send. I will do everything through my website. Um, but I wanted to say something that about the write and publish the book and my experience that I narrate in that
Okay.
book. It's that there's also something uh, you're gonna think I'm a little bit of a dreamer, but there's a magnetism, and I believe that when I started to look for a publisher or to think, I never thought of publishing my poetry. I've tons and tons of poet that I have in notebooks that are there that I've written over the years. I've
Mm-hmm.
never published them, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was like a sort of magnetism that brought me in touch with a person that was Greek living in Canada,
Yeah.
and suddenly we had things in common. The name of the press was Riza Press, and suddenly we had things in common. We were both North American and Greek, and we were both looking at Greece from a perspective and having the same lens somewhere. And so that started the publication. That started, and they were really happy to publish me, and I was really happy to be published by them. And then the next one, it's the same thing. Is a friend tells you, it's a friend, Yahya Lababidi, who had published this. I mean, acquaintance, not friend.
Mm.
And I loved his poetry, and then there was this publisher publishing him, and Kelsey Books it is, and this the, this is them, and
Yeah.
so and and yeah, from there I asked them, would you like to publish me too, thinking that it was going to be no, of course, and then they said yes, and so it's not so difficult, but there has to be some kind of connections, I think.
Oh, yeah. There has to be connections. And we
Yeah.
are glad that we are connected with you. That's why we are asking all the listeners and the viewers to come connect with you to get started on poetry. Now, Karine's chapter on the Write and Publish Your Book anthology is titled Serendipity, and you've heard how that title comes to be. So there's a lot that she shares here. Please go get this book and read more of that.
Yeah,
And
can I say a word or two on serendipity?
okay, you go ahead.
It's what I just said exactly.
Yeah.
Um, it's that there is something, if you truly love what you're doing, you attract good vibes. You attract, and that's serendipity. You attract, like if you do and you write poetry, or if you write a novel, or if you write an essay, or if you're passionate about what you're doing, and you're going to tell this guy, and you're going to tell that girl, and you're going to tell everybody, and they're going to say, oh yeah, I have a friend who does the same thing, you want to meet him or you want to meet her, And then it happens like that, and that's serendipity. Serendip is a he's a prince in Persia,
Mm-hmm.
and and he found love in this way by chance, and so it is by chance, but chance you also make your chance. You also push it by being passionate, by being true, by being sincere, and and by being profound, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're all these things, or you attempt to be, because you're never, but we're never perfect,
Yeah.
we're on a journey, like Kavafi says. He
Mm-hmm.
says, Ithaka, we're on the journey, and the journey is life.
Mm-hmm.
But if you attempt to be these things, if you attempt to be true, if you attempt to be passionate, if you attempt to be wise, and look inside you from the depths of you, profound,
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps. I think that brings the chance to
Mm-hmm.
you.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, there's someone who's watching on Facebook and wants to hear the spelling of that one, serendipity.
So it's Serendip. Serendi. It's serendip.
ITY. Yeah, let me finish it for you. It
Yeah,
takes it takes two. So you start it, I finish it.
and it's the story of the Prince Serendip, the
Serendip.
the
Serendip.
Prince Serendip of Persia.
Yeah, let me share that name with someone who is hearing it for the very first time. Say, oh, I gotta get it. Now, it would be good, since we are talking about poetry, this is what I'm thinking. It would be good to hear something from you. How's that?
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What's your favorite?
do you want to hear something? Um, something. I have a lot of difficult poem in here because it's. Oh, I know. I will take this one on page 21. It's called Archaeopoetry. So this is kind of how you bring the poetry to you.
Okay.
Okay. So here goes. Archaeopoetry. I excavate truths from silence. My dreams slip like eels between underwater beams. Like Atlantis, drowned below Santorini, hurriedly I find the baby thrown out with the bath water. Helpless, I press my subconscious to moor my fantasies onto the thought pier of my brain, to deliver it on paper. But no, an ambiguous relation with the sacred prevents the process. My inner voice is scolding my sincerity. Why divulge this crooked intimacy? A shadow part of me, an ungraspable dimension, disregarding? The culprit is my imagination, forcing her way out, unrestrained, colonizing my reader's thoughts, exposing my opaque self, replete with failings and vulnerabilities. But then again, it is the purpose of poesy, the memory of archaeopoetry. And that says it all. You see, it says it all because it's you have to say what's wrong in you. You have to
Mm,
be sincere. You have to, show your vulnerability, show your failings, how wrong you are. How Because Beckett said, you try, you fail, you try again, and you fail better. Failing is also a, a way to become, a way to be, a way to inhabit yourself.
thank you.
And yeah, and also the last thing I wanted to say to people, if they want to try themselves, you see, when I say I excavate the truth from silence. My dreams slip like eels between underwater beams. There is something about the music.
Hmm.
Poetry is not just about words, like I told you. That's a failing. It's not. It's about words, but it's also about uh, the musicality. There is music in
Yeah.
poetry.
Mm-hmm.
The sound of each word is important,
Yeah.
and you work on that. Like when you come and you pour your poem out from your subconscious, then the subconscious doesn't have these. It has the images, it has the metaphors, it has the way that it can see a chair in, like a snake,
Mm.
or like a zebra, or like, it gives you these images. But then you're the one who's going to work on the words, the part that's the nitty gritty of it. That's why, poems are very long to make. You write a poem, and then you wait a few months, not a few days, a few months, and then you go back to it, and then you see what does it do to you, and how does it hit you, how does it touch you, how does it connect with you, and then you modify a few things, and then you see again another year later if this is really what you wanted to achieve.
Mm. Wow, that's interesting, and it's good to know that. Wow, wow, wow. Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
it's not instantaneous.
Uh,
Poetry is not the thing of a moment. It's a thing, it's a long-term thing. Yeah.
mm. So if I write my poem today, I don't send it to you until next month or early next year.
Yes, early next year.
Early
That's
next
it.
year. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Karine. We really appreciate you coming to now tell us. And we are now coming to the end of this show. We've actually added, I think there's so much that we can share that we didn't have enough time for it. So thank you very much.
That's very much, that's enough. That's very a lot of time, and I thank you for this time. I thank you for this time because it's nice to have an audience to share your passion, and
Yeah.
poetry is my passion.
Oh, that's very good, and we appreciate you. And yeah, you've done something good today.
I hope.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you to Karine, and to everyone who's listening. Thank you too, watching. Even if you get to listen to this or watch this after we've recorded it, we thank you for taking your time. Remember to get a book, write and publish your book, where authors tell their writing stories. And also remember to check out with Karine, and yeah, connect with her. She's a beautiful soul.
Thank you, Anthony. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for
Yeah.
listening.
Bye for now. Until next time, it's
Bye.
bye. Keep writing, keep speaking poetry.
Keep telling.